Live here now on the PDOCS live stream series here. Some of you guys probably saw the post, and there will be others here watching the replay or when I post it up on YouTube. And as you guys know, in the PDOCS group, we are communication, outreach, research, and copywriting kind of methodology and system that we trademarked and have taught to over 2,500 students. So almost all of our live stream guests have something to do with digital marketing, business, sales, copywriting, right? On and on and on. And we've had different guests on for everything. And as I talked about, this one is a little more unconventional, as he would fully admit, he doesn't really declare to be an expert in anything, and not so much the online digital marketing world, but he has had some success with online revenue and some things we were talking about as we were prepping for this. And he and I kind of got online early to catch up. That's my brother Kenny. And as I described in my little intro to the post, I said Kenny's somebody that I've described as probably the smartest person I've ever met in many instances, and I almost hate to admit it because I'm competitive and he's my brother, right? And then I said very wasted potential. And when I used to describe you like that, Kenny, I was thinking back at it after I wrote it. I'm like, should I even say that? And I'm like, well, A, I'm unfiltered. B, you're not soft, right? I'm not going to offend you. No. And C, it was true. But it was true, and I look at it different now, because when I used to say that was back when you were like working for Abide. I'm like, why is this guy bullying asbestos? Yeah. Or like, you were just so much, I just saw you could have had you wanted to, and you probably know this, but you did it as a conscious effort, and it was a conscious decision. It's not like you were wasting potential because you didn't fulfill things. You wanted to travel, not be tied down, to not have, looking back on it now, how I value more time and experiences as opposed to when I was freaking 15 or 20, the way I would describe you, I certainly look at it different. Anybody could still say wasted potential due to, drugs, right? Jail time, right? I mean, you've had a colorful past, to say the least.
A little bit.
And I bet you still in your life, through maybe not legal or what's the word I'm looking for, typical areas, you still earned as much or more than most people your age, or definitely with your education level and background. No doubt about that. But there's also, when I think about that phrase, there's no doubt that you could have been $1 million a year employee or business owner too, had you wanted to do that. But let's just start there. Talk a little about that.
Well, that wasn't the game plan since I was a kid. I mean, you know what I mean? I was never, the reason I started with Abide was because I had a bunch of babies at the time. They were offering me $50 an hour in the 90s. You know what I mean? And it would have been foolish to not do it. But after what? Would it take me a year to realize, no, this ain't for me? And I was back, on the road, because I could, in those days, I was making double that money in one weekend having a party. You know what I mean? So
yeah, you could hustle.
It seemed like a really bad move to stay working 5-6 days a week and get one day off when I can go party for 2 days a week and get 5 days off and easily make the money. The money wasn't the thing. It was just if I wanted to be home and like a responsible guy, that was kind of the way to go at that point. But in the end, I didn't really want to be home and be a responsible guy.
I just don't think you were wired like that. I mean, I've always said that.
Yeah, I'm not.
I couldn't do what you did. I couldn't not be there for my kids. And I'm not saying that in a negative way. I just think people are wired different. Like, there's some people that fulfill responsibility, some people that are like, this just isn't for me. And if I do the responsible thing, I'm just going to hate myself and regret it.
There's that too. Yeah, I mean, things you miss and things you sacrifice for are, it's the weights you kind of weigh it on.
But that also fulfilling that responsibility and doing the right thing is also, for me, where I got trapped into the American trap, as I like to say, 50 hour week job, 50K plus a year salary, mortgage, house, 2.2 kids, dog, right? And like, once you start getting that, like, you're too afraid of not having the security to pay your mortgage, to be able to put food on the table, that you don't take any gambles, chances. And I'm looking back after doing that for 20 years, some of the people that follow my PDOCS group or me in business know my background and how I transitioned into this just about 4.5 years ago with digital marketing. But I waited until 2 of my 3 kids were grown up and moved out. And I just have 1 kid now that's with me 50% of the time. I didn't have as many responsibilities. Yep. I could take a gamble. And I put a lot into the foundations. I studied for a year or 2. I hired business coaches. I didn't just like quit and start. I studied for a while on the side while I was still doing my day job to provide. But yeah, like, going back, the one thing I regret in my life is working a full-time corporate job or for a corporation for 20 years and not gambling on myself or figuring out there's entrepreneurship or other ways earlier.
Yeah, I was stoked for you. I was happy for you when you got out of that cycle. I don't remember. I don't know if you remember. It was right about the time when the house went away. You know what I mean? And you started doing your own thing. And I was like, man, maybe that's what needed to happen to jolt him into, you know what I mean? Figuring out what he wants to do. Cause yeah, I was watching you do the same. I'm not saying Dad did anything wrong or anything, but you were definitely going down the same route as our
100%.
old man. You know what I mean? And I was like, you might not want to keep going that way if you don't want to end up that way. You know what I mean? And I love Dad and all that. I'm not
Me
saying
too.
anything bad about him. He did a wonderful job. But there's just a
Great
lot
job.
more horizons, a lot more opportunities for us at that point than there was for anybody in the 70s or 80s. You know,
No, 100%.
just
100%.
these days, I mean, like back then, you couldn't get a good education without college or a really extremely expensive class or whatever it was. And nowadays, you can
Certification,
literally
yeah.
log on for a $5 Discord fee and learn how to uh, trade stocks, whatever you're doing, crypto. You can just get going anywhere. The meeting of the minds and the discords and the what are they called? These things, Zoom meetings,
Yeah,
um,
courses,
YouTube
YouTube, all
videos, all
kinds.
kinds of stuff. You can just lock into something and learn it and get a college education in weeks if you can consume it. You know what I mean? If you can retain it, and that kind of stuff really got me since 2016 when I got out the last time. I realized I got a glimmer into what was going on, and I just started learning stuff. Man, I spent more money on classes and courses than I have in my life. You know, just little ones. It's not like a college tuition. It's
No, no.
$100 here and there or whatever it was. You know, and yeah, that stuff is the meeting of the minds these days is so much more. You get so much more opportunity than when we were, then
Yeah,
90s,
then
we'll
when
say 80s and 80s.
Yep. No, I fully agree. And going back to what you said about Dad, I definitely did follow exactly his footprints. I went to work for the
I
same
know.
company in the same industry. I made a little more money than him. Surprisingly, he'd been in it longer, but he
Yeah,
went into management. I made more on the road.
yeah,
But what I did take away, like you said, nothing, nothing bad. I know we got blessed in the parents department. I don't know people that have cooler
yeah,
parents
yeah,
and a better family. Like
yeah,
where I really don't know anybody with better parents than myself. And not
yeah.
just saying that because I just can't think of anybody, to be honest. So we're super blessed there. And what Dad showed me was hard work ethic. He taught me little things like you fucking work through your sick days and you take those when you're feeling good and fucking go fishing, right? Like the little ways to enjoy life when you
Yep.
are stuck in that kind of
Yeah, no,
corporate trap.
he
But
definitely had the
for
tricks of the
my old
day.
childhood, I saw his ass get up. Well, we knew it was before we were still asleep, but he got up. He went to work every fucking day. At the crack of dawn. I mean, Dad was waking up at 3:34 in the morning for my whole
I know.
childhood, and just that
Yep.
example of him being out of the house before anyone else woke up every day of your life, like it just shows dedication and work ethic. So I wouldn't trade that for
Yep.
the world. That was important. It's still important in what I do.
It is. I lack
But
that.
I went
Honestly,
into. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I honestly lack that because I didn't follow that. You know what I mean? I really didn't follow that. And even these days, I'll have a stock that's up 50%, and I know I got to get up at 3 a.m. to monitor it, but I don't set my alarm till 6 because I know I want sleep more than I want my money. You know what I mean? Like there's days when my work ethic is just not there, but I will put a stop loss in case it drops X amount and all that stuff, and kind of safeguard myself. But there's a lot of days when I should be doing stuff I shouldn't, and I'm just like I'd rather sleep or I'd rather go visit my friend or walk the dog. Sometimes walking the dog loses me money. You know what I mean? And I'm like, whatever. I got a dog. You know?
It is what it is. Yeah. And the
Yep.
last thing I was going to say about Dad, you mentioned like, I was following his path and yada, yada, yada. It was ironic because he was one of the people that doubted me most. Not doubted me, but doubted what I was doing. You sure you don't have a steady paycheck? This isn't a scam. Like he was on. And then when I get to take him out now and buy his dinner and just like, shit like that, he's like, it took about 2 years before he's like, okay, right. I guess you did all right. Like you were right. Right.
Yeah.
But,
Good. That's awesome.
and
That's
that was
awesome.
like a healthy doubt. Like I get where he was coming from and it kind of motivated me a little
Yeah.
more. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I know what I'm doing, Dad. Like, it's not going to happen overnight, but like, it's no scam either. I'm learning skills. I'm helping people. I'm delivering value. Like that stuff. There's no scam
Yep.
when that's happening. It's not like
No. Absolutely.
but Dad didn't have the unconventional that you could go start a business. He still can't explain that. He's like, what do you do? I'm like, marketing and sales, Dad. He's like, I don't understand it. I'm like, people need people to
Yeah.
come in the door of their business, and once they come in the door, they need to close the fucking deal. Like, I help do those two things. Like, there's no other way to say it, right?
Yep.
But he just couldn't fathom like there's a way to make money like that and not have a who's paying you. The customer pays me, Dad. I don't need a payroll
Yeah.
company. I don't need an HR. The customer deposits
Yep.
into my bank account. But yeah, that's pretty cool. So let's go back a little into like what was your thought process? Because I haven't talked to you about this for years, and I think it'd be interesting for anybody. Like, it's funny to ask what somebody's thought process was in their teenage years, right? Because we all knew it all and fuck everybody. But at the same point, what was your thought process with dropping out of school? Education wasn't super important, and traveling and getting experiences at that age. Because I either didn't have the balls, or maybe I saw what you did and I went a different path. Because
Well, that's a kind of weird question. I think the main part of me getting out of school came from, you know how the Agawam High School had the public library right next door.
yep, still does.
So I could go to the public library and order books from any library in the country, and they would be there for me to borrow. So I went into Egypt, a lot of ancient, older, 5,000, 3,000 plus year old texts, starting with, Tibetan, Bhagavad Gita, not all, but a bunch of the older pre-biblical things. And I started to see how bad the education system was lying to me, and how the financial system was not being taught to me, and how just it was a system of oppression, and the more you learned, the easier it was for you to be a tool for them to profit off of. You know what I'm saying? It's a basic picture.
No, yeah, I definitely didn't see any of it when I was 16, but I agree with it all.
There's definitely a lot more to it. So I would basically skip school. I might go to school on a rainy day.
You went to Bengals class.
I would go. Yeah, Mr. Doherty. I would go to the public library and read my books all day. And at lunch break, I'd make a couple dollars from my friends who needed to come and see me. And then I would go home at the end of the day. And so then that one day, it just there was a dead tour starting up, and I was starting 11th grade, I think, beginning 11th grade.
Yeah, it's about right.
And I said, man, I can't commit to another year of school when I know it's bullshit, is the best way to put it. And I just couldn't get into it. And so, yeah, I just signed the paper, said I'm out of here, and stuck my thumb out, man, went on the road, started doing my thing. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. We're gonna dive into some of that.
I'm sure you remember those days. The whole family was mad and freaked out and stuff. And I was like, but it's what it is.
No, I definitely saw it. I get a little bit when the family got freaked out and mad by some later things after that. But right then, well, mom and dad.
Yeah, at that point, I wasn't that into the dumb shit. I was just into having fun shit, which was nice. Yeah.
I think it's interesting.
I went down a dark path.
Okay.
I went down a dark path for them years after that. And, I'm not going to say I regret it, but I could have done better then,
Yeah. I mean, you can't regret it because it still shapes who you are. And you did what you did.
Right.
I still remember in the hallway coming down the stairs from your room, the hallway that, that led down the only hallway we had on the main floor in the house.
Yep.
Mom grabbing you and flipping you onto the floor and getting on top of you because you were hiding something, right? And like, I never saw my 4'11" mother whoop somebody's ass, and you can't hit mom back. But I mean, I didn't think she was capable. And I was like, oh shit, I'm never fucking, like, I was 11 when I'm seeing this, to like, that's the difference, right? I saw what you went through, and I'm like, I ain't doing that stuff.
But man, that was a good one. It's a very vibrant memory in my brain.
Mine too. Mine too. But I think that's interesting. Like, you were whatever 16-ish and skipping school to go learn 3,000-year-old text and stories, and like, so like, that's A, very, very rare. But B, kind of to my point, is although you didn't see the value in school while you're finished, like, I get all that. You never had a problem with picking it up and acing shit if you wanted to. Like, you could have, And then I think that kind of ties into like you said, always learning, right? Like, even when you went to jail and stuff like that, like, you had told me coming out talking quantum physics and black hole theories, like that stuff. And I'm pretty smart, but that stuff I still can't grasp near as easy as you. And then understand and be able to kind of make my own thoughts on the matter going forward to evolve that further. That stuff's pretty amazing. If you could talk about that.
Well, I learned that basically because after reading all these old texts when I was younger, basically Hermes and Hermes Trismegistus stuff, and a little bit of Newton stuff and Da Vinci. But between those three, and then to compare them with the modern physics, because we're going to call that the old physics, you know what I mean? The
Got it.
alchemists.
Yeah.
And then to compare that to the new physics was when I finally found the new physics, I wasn't 22 or 4 by the time I started reading Brian Greene's Fabric of the Universe and the Elegant Fabric of the Cosmos and the Elegant Universe, and then went on to Schrodinger and Feynman and stuff. But once I could see the parallels between those, I couldn't stop. You know what I mean? I had to keep making the connections, man, because the more you know, the more connections there's made, and you realize that these newest form of science is really the oldest form of science. It's nothing new under the sun, you know. As
That's
above, so
cool.
below. Yeah, yeah. It was just that, and that was just purely interesting to me. You know, like I'm not gonna go start up a particle accelerator. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna make money off of this. I just couldn't stop. I was consumed by it. You know.
Usually those are topics that's the other way around.
And I was in prison most of the time, so I had nothing but time and didn't want to learn nothing but the coolest things, you know, or spend my time as wise as possible, learning the most poignant things in life.
Well, you were one of the only people I've ever heard say, "Yeah, I'm going to go commit a crime so I can get locked up for 90 days. I got a warm meal and a place to sleep for the next 9 months during the winter." Like that's how you looked at prison at one. I was like,
yeah,
that's the craziest thing. But it actually made sense based off your situation.
After the first couple times, jail's not going to scare you. You just be like, all right, let's go. I'll take a nap.
I'll just never find out, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. I pray for you. Yeah, I hope so. Looking at my life now, I'll probably never get back there either, but I wouldn't change it for the world.
No, I believe that about you. You know, I definitely do. I mean, you've made a lot of good changes since 16 or whenever that last time you came out.
And meditation stuff too. Like a lot of those old texts, especially Tibet and Hindu, are very strongly based in meditation. So there was one time I got 9 months in the box, and I was like, I'm not getting out of this room for 9 months. Why don't I practice all these thoughts I learned? And that's another paradigm expanding fucking practice to do. Like I still to this day try to get 30 minutes in at night. You know, sometimes I fall asleep or whatever, but try and get 30 minutes in at night every night, because that's replenishing gratitude, heart-based, heart-brain coherence. There's a couple techniques you should probably, basic fundamental techniques you should know, but then you can branch off into all kinds of spaces, all kinds of stuff.
That's cool. Let's we'll dive into like what you do now to make money. We'll talk about that a little here before the end. But let's talk about, like, I put in the post where I kind of described you and some of the topics you might discuss, and you already kind of brought up hitchhiking, In the Dead, right? Hippie bands. But some of the crazier experiences, and there's a lot, the ones that I'm fully aware of. You weren't around a lot of my life and traveling. You told me most of these stories. Like, for instance, being nailed in Texas with 50 or 100 pounds of shrooms and a whole car that was hollowed out and full of them. I remember one morning I'm getting ready for school. Somehow you're just coming home after being out all night partying, and you and Bill Garrett are beat to shit. You told me you got beat by some chick with a whip on top of Proven Mountain. Like, I mean, just like, and these are just a couple coming to the top of my head. There's the one where we tried to hitchhike across the country. At first, we started with a car. If you remember, it blew up after we left Steve Stewart's house. You had to yell him up, and we literally got out and ran like in a movie, and it blew up behind us. Like,
That's how you get away from flaming cars.
And then I thought, okay, well, we're only in New York. We came from Mass. The trip's over. Turn around, go back. You're like, what do you mean? I brought my credit card. He pulls out a black marker. He's like, this makes me more money than anything. I'm like, what the F are you talking about? He's like, oh, just go fly a sign. Homeless Vietnam vet. I'm like, you were in Vietnam. He's like, they don't know that.
No, I never put that on a sign. Put that on a sign.
Whatever you put. It might not have been that. Whatever you put. But But, and then you just go. I got us $200, right? Let's go eat. Let's go get a taxi. Whatever. Like, and it was just, and then we hitchchiked halfway across the country and back when that was the year I graduated high school. Interesting.
That was a fun trip. Remember the dining dash?
With the cops in the restaurant. We run outside. So we were literally so broke that we had the plan to go into a restaurant and not pay the bill. Like, that was our plan. And then, little to our, plan, right? Like to throw a little right in the plan, 2 cops come in and sit down right across from us. So like, how do we we're like, well, let's just keep ordering more dessert, like they'll eventually leave, and they weren't leaving. So we literally dash, we go around the building, hide in a bush, and we see the cops come out running everywhere, getting their car bolt. But that was another one. Or the house, the abandoned house in Iowa with the raccoon that was like on Datura.
That was great. I've been there like 5 times in my life. That's a good spot.
Yeah, real good spot. That was the craziest thing I've ever experienced. That raccoon I thought could kill me.
Yeah.
And remember, we saw that deer that ran us in the cornfield, like a 300-pound
Oh, that
deer.
was crazy. Yeah, I thought
Like,
I'd dive out of the way of
I
that
know
guy.
you did. I know you did. So,
Yeah.
but go ahead, elaborate. You can either elaborate on some of those or maybe some more. I was just going off the top of my head all the crazy shit. Like when I said you could write a book, that would be so fascinating. I think you have in the past. You lost it or whatever. But like, elaborate on some of those or some other interesting, crazy shit.
On what base? On money making base or just
No, no,
fun?
no, no. This isn't.
The
I
music.
told everybody. I just the clarity. We'll talk a little bit about money and business stuff, but this episode is not intended to further your business one iota. That's not why I'm
All
here.
right. All right. Some of the more amusing ones was oh, let me think. All right, we'll say Keller Williams show. I think it was a little town in Ohio, late 90s. No, early 2000s probably. So anyways, I used to sell a lot of things at concerts. And I had a little Keller Williams show. There was only like a 900 seat venue. And I was trying to unload X amount of this stuff. And my friends were all like, there's no way you're going to do it at that show. So at the end of the show, I hustled my ass off, got rid of everything except one last little bag. And at the end of the show, I was about to sell my last little bag and be done. And my girlfriend, I had a stolen 2001 Durango in 2003. So it was 2003, and my Durango was brand new, $20,000 car, and it was stolen from another story. So anyway, so my girl's passed out in the back seat. My girl's just asleep in the back seat. And my last bag of stuff that I had to sell was underneath the back seat because it was what I was going to save for me if I wanted it, but I was just going to sell it. So anyway, so I open the back door, and it's the concert closing. Everyone's streaming out, and the cops are clearing the street. But you know how they do after the show. Come on, everybody, moving along, get out of here. You got to go home. So right as I open the door to grab the thing, my girl's pissed off, drunk, and she whips a beer at my head and says, "I'm fucking sleeping." So the beer, I duck out of the way.
Jesus.
The beer hits the wall behind me and explodes right next to the cop that's walking by. Now I'm turning around with work in my hand. There's a cop standing right there and a drunk girl with dreadlocks yelling at me. And my buddy Neil's standing there. So the cop's like, "What's going on here?" And I was like, "Well, my girl's off." And I'm kind of tucking my things behind me, under my leg. My girl's right here. She's off her med. She hasn't had, I gave him a big line of spiel, a story. And I managed to pass the thing off to Neil while the cop was looking in the car. I waited till his eyes to go in the car, and I passed the thing off to Neil, and he walked off. So now I'm clean except for the car, So so she comes out rip and ready to fight. This dread-headed blonde girl wants to fight me now in front of the cop for waking her up because she's just drunk and passed out. So the end of the story, or the moral of the story was we got to drive away because he was like, "Just take her," because I told him the meds were at our hotel. I just got to get her back to the hotel, get her meds, she'll be fine. He's like, "All right, go." So we got out of that one. Now we get down the road and she starts punching me. And I had a bunch of money on me, so I had it all in the console right here between the seats. Like I just emptied all my pockets of all this random money, and it was a big pile of it. So she starts punching me. And at this point, I just pulled the car. We're in suburbs of Chicago somewhere, so it was pretty ghetto. So I just pulled the car over on the side of the road, and I went around and I literally just grabbed her and put her on the ground. And I said, "Listen, I'm leaving. You're staying here. You're not just going to beat me while I'm driving you away from the cops that you almost got me arrested for." You know what I mean? So so as I'm driving away, I left the passenger door open, right? And you know what happens when you push on the gas on a car and the door's open? The door just kind of slams shut, right?
I would think.
As the door slammed shut, she had reached into the door to grab the car. Now the jam shut on her door, and I didn't know this. She's below my window. She's sitting on the ground. So I drove a block, dragging this girl down the road on her right side. And right before I took the left, that would have surely ripped her in shreds and put her under the car, I heard the banging on the door down there. And at first I thought the seatbelt was left outside and just kind of dangling. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I stopped the car and I go out, and she's just like ripped apart, hands all mangled. And she gets in the car. Now I got to bring her to the hospital, of course, right?
I would think.
We get her in the car, and she's holding her hand and showing me all the damage to her hand. Never mind the rest of her, but the hand was the important part at that point. So she's showing me the damage to her hand, and I didn't even realize at that time, but the blood's just flowing all over my freshly new pile of money, just everywhere, just drenching. So we get her to the hospital. they spend hours picking gravel and stuff out of all the little wounds. They put her hand in a cast, couple broken fingers. But the deal from there was I really had to get her to a hotel to soak and get all the little stuff out of her skin so it didn't get infected. You know what I mean? So I'm a little covered in blood. She's totally covered in blood and bandaged up, and all my money is covered in blood. None of us have an ID. Stolen fucking $20,000 car. We pull into the hotel, and I'm like, how the hell am I going to talk this guy into renting me a room? You know? I walk in there covered in blood with bloody money and managed to convince the guy to give me a room because my girl was beat up and got dragged by a car. And yeah, that was a pretty crazy one in general. Long story short, she did get her fucking bath and got all the gravel out of her skin, and nothing did get infected. I was with her for another 2 or 3 weeks till we were in Vegas at another show where she was freaking out on me again, and I saw the cop coming from across the parking lot, which so gave me 30 or a minute, and I just grabbed her duffel bag and threw it on the ground, and I said, "You're staying here, and I'm going there," and that's the last time I ever seen her. I still
Don't
look
put
around
your
for
arm
that
in the
girl.
truck.
No, this was 2 weeks later. Yeah,
No,
yeah.
I know.
2 weeks later, her arm was in a cast. It was cool. And yeah. Oh, I gave her $34 too. I remember that. I was like, here's $34 because Circus is $34 a night for the hotel at Circus.
I didn't see that one going there, but somehow that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, we were right by Circus. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. You asked for a ridiculous one. That was one of them. Yeah.
That's a great example. That's one I hadn't heard.
Yeah.
So no, that's a great example. That's what I'm saying. You have so many of them. You know, still we had so many cool experiences on what I still refer to and consider the best weekend of my life, which was August 16th and 17th, 1996, the Clifford Ball.
Oh yeah, that was a great
So
show.
that was my
except I
first
lost
ever.
my wallet.
So that was my yeah. That was my first ever Fish concert. I was 16 years old. For people who don't know, Fish is a hippie band, jam band, whatever you want to call them, that kind of got really, really big after Jerry died, and a lot of that audience migrated over to the Dead. I don't really think the Dead and Fish are very similar. The audiences are, but the bands I think have
no, but the energy is the community is.
It's the community, exactly. That's the. It's not necessarily the music though. That's the link. It's more the vibe and But anyhow, so like I didn't know what to expect. First off, at that time in the mid 90s, I'm just in 96, so 11th grade or so. I'm probably listening to Nirvana, Bush, like Sublime, the bands of that era, Rage Against the Machine, possibly. And then all of a sudden, the first time I ever listened to Fish is like you put in Lawn Boy on tape deck, and I'm like, when you just listen to Fish on a studio tape, it's just you don't get it, right? I'm like, what the hell is this crap? You know what I mean? But then I get there. And then I get there, and it turns out that this concert ended up being, at the time, and I don't know if this still stands, the biggest single band concert ever held in the United States. So 70,000 people come to see one band, right? Like there's bigger events like Woodstock, multiple bands, but 70,000 people for one band. And I look over to my brother, who'd been following them for years, ever since like 200 and 300 person shows, for crying out loud. Yeah, I'm like, always like this, and you're like, no, this is something different.
No, this is a little extreme.
And then even watching the documentary years later, seeing the lead guitarist Trey come out, and he goes, that was the first time I ever looked at an audience, was in awe. He was like, it was just a sea of people that I couldn't see the end of them. And he's like, that's when I knew, like, holy shit, you know what I mean? But that was an amazing show.
That was an amazing show, amazing weekend. No bad stories about it. We had a blast. What happened? Did we buy tickets beforehand, or did we scrape them up when we got there?
We had them, and you sold our second ones after we lost our wallet. So we only ended up going in the first night, if you remember. Although you could hear it outside. Right. It was one of those venues. It was an open air force space. So you didn't have to be inside to hear it.
Yeah.
But day two, we got to go in. No, we didn't.
We got in.
I didn't. Me and Dean didn't. You might have.
I remember listening to Simbops and Bebophones, Skyballs and Saxo Scrapers.
Day one.
Right. We were inside.
I know. There was 2 days.
Okay.
Day two, we didn't go in.
We didn't get in the second night. I got you. Okay. Yeah, that might be.
And I still only have my stub. I saved every stub from all my shows. I still have the first night. I don't have a second night. Right. But regardless, that was crazy. Like throughout that trip, we slept in some kid's tree fort that at first you convinced us.
Don't worry, I knew the kid.
Yeah. Don't worry, I knew. And then we realized a day later when we were sneaking out of there, like the dad's in the driveway, you didn't know shit. We also tried to sleep in this, you remember this cement structure over Lake Champlain the night before we took the ferry over. We all threw our luggage in. If you remember, mine went straight through the sinkhole, whatever, the hole in the ladder. And my luggage for the whole weekend goes down into fucking Lake Champlain before we even get there. Then you hitchhike, you cuddle up with some chick on the ferry that gives us a ride the whole way to the show. We didn't even have a car. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was all crazy, but and that was
That was
and then you in your early 20s supervising me and Dean at 16 and 14 at our first city festival was just something else. There was a lot of LSD going on that weekend. It was nuts. It was nuts. That was where you first
fun.
taught me ground scores, Kenny, and I found one.
Yeah, ground score. Yeah, you wait. We're waiting until the end because we're getting the ground scores before we leave. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
You can talk. You got anything to add to the Clifford Ball?
Clifford Ball. It was just one of my. I felt like now looking back on it, I'm just glad I opened your eyes with that one. You're and Dean both, because of the way Dean went with his life. You know, he's a drummer now. He just absolutely fell in love with the drummer from Fish. He's a Fishman 2.0. He wears his same same dress to play his drums. I mean,
Yeah.
I just feel like that weekend influenced you two so much. I was like, yeah, I think I helped do that. You know, that was good.
100%. It
And
influenced
with
my
that
life huge,
hitchhiking
and Dean's even more, I would say.
and that hitchhiking trip with you too. I was glad to at least give you a glimpse into the belly of the beast. You know what I mean? How to do everything for nothing and have a blast doing it. You know?
Yeah, worst case scenario, you can always survive. But yeah, I learned a lot that I
Yeah.
would have never known or
Yeah.
picked up. Also made me learn how to be more resourceful too. I mean, that's what you got to do
Well,
when
yeah,
when you
yeah.
don't have
There's always
stability.
another way. Yeah.
Yep,
That's one of my mottos is there's always another way. And I've been doing so much with so little for so long. Now I can do almost anything with almost nothing.
that's awesome. So you referenced some of the people you studied and were interested in early: Newton, Da Vinci. I just had a quick flash when you said Da Vinci because we have Uncle Mark Langdon on, which if you remember, the main star of the Da Vinci Code is Mark Langdon. If you've ever
Yeah.
seen the movie. So I
Robert
just thought,
Langdon.
oh, Robert Langdon. You're right. It
Yeah.
is Robert
I
Langdon. My
realized.
bad. My bad. For some reason, I always equated it to Mark when I saw the movie. I don't know why.
I can't
Yeah.
take credit for that.
No, you probably
You
can't.
know, they probably based the character on you though.
That's what I'm going with. That was my point. That was my point. Cool. Let's dive in and give the people a glimpse of, in terms of money and what you've done online. And I found this a little fascinating because this is in a different industry, or, a lot of my friends invest in this stuff. I do a little investments, but not like this. But what Kenny learned to do right around COVID, I think is when you started, and everybody in the world shut down in terms of earning, is when he learned how to kind of penny trade and stock trade. And he's been telling me for the last 4 years, stocks have paid all his bills. He has over 10 grand in his account surplus after he's paid the bills.
Well,
and I don't think you've ever dumped in. I think you said like more than $1,300 to start off with.
No, my initial buy-in was $7,000, and I've never really put more in. So yeah, initially, altogether, 7,000 I put in. I lived for several years off it, and it's just all you really need to do is now that I realize I'm not paying attention, all you really need to do is just pay attention to a couple things, especially a couple hours a day, looking for news pre-Rs. What get. I don't know. I guess where should I start with this? It's just such a long.
No, we can sum it up
story.
we can sum it up real quick. I mean, I think what we talked about going into this, when I was asking you some more questions about it, and what I know, I fully agree. Like I was like, how are you consistently profitable at this? Because somebody picking up something from scratch, no matter what it is, usually is going to have ups and downs or be more down than up, right? So first off was your learning curve, but like what you told me about like looking at press releases and news headlines and kind of predicting what's going to happen that day is how you get some of your best hunches, for lack of a better phrase. It's not a hunch. You have a formula behind it, but
definitely when I started was, like I said, when COVID hit, I was living in my van when COVID hit. I had plenty of money and stuff and things. I just didn't want a house. I could have bought a house. Yeah. So anyways, COVID hits, and I'm like, man, let me get off the road because the world shut down, basically. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to get pulled over. I don't have a license. I haven't had a license since I was a teenager. I haven't had a legal car ever in my life. And I'm living in my car, driving around questionable substances to questionable people every day, So I was like, let me just get off the road for a minute and see how COVID thing works out. So I bought this little place. Great deal, 10 grand for 4 acres on a lake with a house on it. Come on, man, I couldn't pass it up. So now I'm sitting in this house with a couch and my dog, and a couple plates, and I'm like, what am I going to do with my life? I mean, I need to figure out a way to make money that I don't really need to go out in the world. So I looked into the crypto stuff, and I couldn't quite get a grip on following the money of the crypto, following the trends of the crypto world. So I couldn't really get a grip on that. And then I started looking into stocks, and I realized the value of realizing all the different metrics, market cap, free float, relative volume, historical highs and lows, just all these kind of things you got to look at in 30 seconds and make an assessment once you see a news headline. Because in the beginning, I tried to do the long-term trading, which worked a little pretty good because in 2020, we were in an extreme bull market. And I didn't know that I got in an extreme bull market. I just jumped in, you know what I mean? So I didn't realize how easy money was to make back then in the stock market. And I thought, oh, this is the stock market. I make $3,000 every 2 days, or a couple grand a month, or a couple grand a week. And I don't, it was easy. There was really no stress to it. There was really not much thinking. And then we hit that bear market in 2022, and I realized what a bear market was. So this is all definitely a learning curve for me still, and it probably always will be. But so yeah, I lost some money in 2022 into 2023, and then I realized how to work the press releases, the news releases, the Security Exchange Commission filings, different PRs is what they call them in the stock world, and I figured out how to get the right bot that produced the PRs quicker than lightning, so that I got to jump on most of the market. And I figured out a really good Discord where there's probably 30 of us in there, and all are profitable traders. Some are million. I'm trading with some very wealthy people who have some semi insider information, so I get some tips and some tricks leaked out from other people, of course. But in general, I sit here from 5:30 a.m. till about 10 a.m. No, about 9:30 a.m. and I look for the morning PRs. And then if I play one till it's done played. Usually catch a nap, and then from 2:30 to 5 p.m. I'm on the afternoon PRs, which are and PRs can hit any time from 3 a.m. to 8 p.m. They can hit any time within a 16-hour period. But there's definitely a concentration at certain hours, and
sure.
if you just, and then I probably spent 6 months where I just watched everyone else make a fortune when I was just gauging how to evaluate the metrics and put them into play. So I didn't really make a trade much for about 6 months trying to figure this stuff out. And then once I got a grip on it and started conversing with a couple other people who taught me some tricks and some bells and showed me some bells and whistles. And yeah, it's an easy way. If you want to just make money and sit in your room or sit in your house and really not have to interact with society, this is one of maybe the most accessible and with the highest potential. You know what I mean?
And
Crypto's a little less
entry,
accessible. Right? Crypto's a little less accessible, but it's a similar game, but it's a little less accessible, and there's a lot more hurdles to jump through to get started. And there's my other income source is poker. So you know what I mean? Like
yeah. No. That's a good one. I like to, I like to play poker. We played together. Poker
Yep.
For me, my the tip I would give to people, like one thing, what I love to do when I go play, especially a cash table, but it's similar in a tournament. What I do the first 30 minutes is play really, really tight and just eyeball the table and find the weak links.
Of course.
And then at that point, I don't really care what my cards are. If those people are in a pot, I'm going to fucking outplay them. You know what I mean? And I just keep trying to. And then I always know the two people I kind of want to stay away from, unless I got I got it. I probably don't want to play with these couple people. They're right there with me, or maybe a little better sometimes. But if you can just identify the weak links and play every pot, poker is not about your cards. It's about your betting, the strategy, pop, all those different things. How much you can bluff.
Game selection is huge right there. What you're talking about is game selection, and that's huge. Just being in the top percentile at your table. That's huge.
Yep. Yeah. Because I'll go to, we have a casino that they built, in the last handful of years in Springfield here, or my local area. Used to be like, I don't know, an hour and a half to the closest, which isn't far. For years, people had to drive, hundreds of miles to go get a casino. But when I'll go to MGM and I'll sit down with $300 or $500 at a cash table, that's my exact strategy. And 7 of the last 8 times I've walked out more than I went in with. Like, I'm a pretty profitable player. I haven't played any high stakes poker in a long time, but no, I love it too.
I'm back to searching for the right site to get back into, because a lot of these sites, where the poker sites, they're willing to let you cash out for 500, 300, 500 or less, no problem cashing out. If you want to cash out over 2K, you're going to have a month-long wait. You're going to have to jump through some hurdles. So I'm trying to find the right place where I can actually get in and out effectively, efficiently,
Yeah, I
it's
used to
tough.
play a decent amount online, but the last 3 or 4 years, I'm all in person. I much prefer because I can't. You can read,
Yeah,
you can play the numbers and the trends and the percentages, but you can't read a person, facial ticks, all that stuff.
yep,
And that's
yep.
part of
Yeah,
that's part of what I'm good at.
if I had a casino within an hour, I'd be there more often. Believe me.
Yeah, no, hell yeah. Now that I got one close, I can go a little more often. So
Yeah.
cool. Before I got a jet here soon and end it, let's talk about ground scores. You said you want to touch on that before we end.
Ground score. All right.
What is it first? Because most of the people won't
Oh,
know.
ground score. Ground score is in a broad spectrum. I mean, ground score is anything you find on the ground, but in a broad spectrum, what we're talking about in this context is after a festival, you can just walk around and find, you might find a brand new Easy Up that the drunk college kids left. You might find a cooler full of prime rib steaks that somebody misplaced. You might find a cooler full of beer, and you just don't know what you're going to find. Is what I'm saying. So you want to just wait till the crowd clears out and just graze the trash. Just walk through the stuff and check out what you find. And I found some phenomenal things, and I found there's times when I had too much shit that I had to leave half of it because I couldn't carry it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So much awesome stuff that I just couldn't bring it all. I think my biggest one that I can remember was it was after a Bonnaroo, and I had a half gallon of vodka in my hand, but no chaser. So I was walking around doing ground scores, doing straight shots of vodka, and I really needed something to drink. So I looked down on the ground, and I saw a 7-Up can, and I gave it a little kick.
Yep.
But it didn't sound like a 7-Up can. It like rattled and rolled. It didn't, you know what I mean? So I picked it up and looked at it, and it was one of those safes with the screw off tops. And there was $3,700 in there, and a couple sheets of acid, and some other things. And that was probably my biggest ground score. But there was countless others that are just phenomenal, crazy happenstances. You know what I mean? You never know what you're gonna find. And the wealthy drunk kids just tend to leave everything they don't want to pack up. You know what I mean? It's just how it goes. And
No,
yeah,
100%.
we've basically built whole rainbow gatherings, which is a whole nother world of mine. That we basically built whole rainbow gathering kitchens out of trash from a festival and fed hundreds of people in the woods, poor people in the woods. You know what I mean? Out of all the stuff that we scraped up off of the wealthier people leaving it, which is a pretty cool game to play. If you want to ask me, I've had a lot of fun with that game.
Yeah. Yeah, I never really thought about it until you started talking to me about like I remember the first time I really became aware of this. Like we were at the Clifford Ball, lots of people, and your eyes are on the ground, and I'm always looking straight in front of me when I'm walking. So I'm like, "Why do you always stare at you?" He's like, "Always have your eyes on the ground. You never." And within 5 minutes, Dean's just walking around kicking trash. He picks up a cellophane baggie with this nice ass bud in it. He's like, "Oh shit, I already got my first ground." Right? And but the way I look at it is, anytime you're in a heavily populated, mass people area, and there's partying, there's tailgating, there's festival, right? Like all of those types of things. If you just kind of always have your eyes on the ground, especially when the crowd clears, but even during the event, people are dropping shit, whatever. So like now I've just made a more conscious effort to do that, and I've found things over the years.
Yeah. And then we'd have people like Bill, who you could just have them go pocket score people. You just have them go up and say, "What's in your pocket?" And yeah, one of them, he's one of them, but a couple of my buddies, you can just, for some reason, you could have them go up and say, "Hey, what's in your pocket, man?" And the guys would be like, "Oh, I got some of this. You want some?" And it always worked. It was just ridiculous.
He did that at the Clifford Ball. Yeah, he goes, we were like,
yeah,
I wish I had some weed to smoke. And Bill's like, "Oh, you don't have any? I'll go get you some." He walks over to the campsite next to us. He goes, "Hey, you guys have any weed?" He sticks out his hand. They put some in his hand. He goes, "Here, guys, I don't smoke. You guys can have it." We pack a bowl, and then he hits it. I was like, "Okay, this is weird, but that's all." It was just crazy. I was like, this guy. He actually hit me up yesterday, and he's like, "Hey, is everything okay with your brother? I read an article saying he died." I was like, "I don't know. I just talked to him yesterday. I hope not." He's like, "Oh, I just like he read a post or something." I'm like, "I don't know."
Yeah, I got a message last night about it. I was like, "Listen, I don't die often, and when I do, it's temporary."
100%. Cool, man. If I didn't have a 245 sharp on another sales call team that I run on my Done For You Sales Lab account business, I'd love to stay down and chat longer. But this was fun, man.
No, it was good to see you. I haven't seen you in a while.
We've never had a conversation like this, like an interview setting with other people watching. Like we talk and bullshit back and forth, but this was kind of cool in a different format and hit some topics and even a couple stories I didn't know. So yeah, man.
I just want to say, guys, that Ray, I've been following you on Facebook for quite a while and following the progress of your business, which kind of piqued my curiosity a little bit. And then when I saw that post a couple of days ago about this meeting, well, now I really got intrigued. So that's why I'm here. And yeah, and the other thing too is like with Kenny, I mean, Kenny, I don't think I've seen or talked to you in what, 35 years probably? It's been
decades.
that long. Yeah.
Yeah.
The one other thing that you guys were bringing up earlier about how doing stupid things when you were young, you guys probably don't know, maybe you don't, but your dads did some pretty stupid shit when he was growing up.
I've heard a few of those
And
stories, but
in
I didn't
fact,
get told them
sure.
until I was an adult.
I honestly believe that if it wasn't for your mother, who knows where your father would be right now.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I agree with you. Me and Jess were actually just talking about that the other night.
Yeah.
I didn't get any of those stories until I was an adult. What I find, and I still probably don't know a lot of them, but I've heard a couple of the pretty crazy ones of driving vehicles with certain things in the trunk up and down the East Coast and other things like that. But
Yeah.
I didn't ever picture that, and you don't want to, you don't want your 5-year-old kid to picture you as a previous, whatever. But
Exactly.
yeah, it'd be cool to hear some of those someday from your point of view,
Yeah.
Mark, because I've never
So it
really
was
got
Yeah, it would. It would. I'd be
never
there
really
for
got the
that.
dirt on Dad from his siblings. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, it was really good
I'd
here
tune
talking
into
to you
that one.
guys. Yeah, it's good to see
Absolutely.
you guys again, and we'll have to do this again sometime.
For sure.
I hope so. Yeah, maybe we'll start a trend.
Maybe.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, guys, I got to run to another meeting. I'm already running a couple minutes late for.
All right.
Thanks. Good seeing you here, Mark, too. Yeah, it's
Absolutely.
funny you mentioned like follow my business, and that's what intrigued you because this is the only one that's not about business. But this was like
I'm
really
not an
fun
expert in
conversation.
anything. I can't give really much life advice because I tell most people not to follow my advice. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I wasn't even sure if I was going to do this in my PDOCS group because it doesn't relate, but I was like, I still am kind of the brand. Everybody knows me. It'd be cool to see a little bit. It's like an in-person interview. Like, what the hell? Whether people like it or not,
Sure.
no big deal.